The polished black floor had already been cleaned twice, when Lena dropped half a sweet roll onto it. Jonas Rell closed his eyes. "Tell me that landed on your shoe." Lena looked down at the crumbs scattered beneath the gold-trimmed bench. "It landed near my shoe. That is a very different sentence." "I know." Jonas sighed, pulled the small vacuum wand from the side of his maintenance cart, and crouched beside her. The royal reception had ended almost an hour ago. Diplomats, admirals, ministers, and jeweled off-world nobles had disappeared into the palace's upper levels, leaving behind empty crystal cups, wilted decorations, and enough food to feed half the service district. Normally, Lena would have been asleep in their apartment by now. Normally, Jonas's neighbor kept her during the late shift, but the neighbor's son had gotten sick. Every backup sitter Jonas knew was working, and the palace childcare center did not accept the children of overnight maintenance staff. So Lena had spent 4 hours following him through the Crown Palace, with a school tablet tucked under one arm. "Homework?" Jonas asked. "Almost done. You said that 40 minutes ago." "It keeps making more questions." "That's generally how homework works." Lena frowned at the tablet, as if this were a personal betrayal. Jonas smiled despite himself. Then the great doors at the far end of the reception hall opened. Every palace worker in sight straightened. Jonas did not need to look at the crest above the doorway to know who was coming. Only one person in the Vayer Crown Palace could make 12 guards move without producing a sound. Queen Marith entered beneath the arch. Jonas immediately lowered his eyes. He had worked inside the palace for 3 years and had seen the queen perhaps 20 times, always from a distance. She was taller than most Vayer, silver-skinned, with dark ceremonial markings tracing the sides of her face. Tonight she wore no crown, only a narrow black circlet rested above her brow. 3 ministers followed her. 2 guards moved ahead. Lord Archivist Valen walked at her left. Jonas gently touched Lena's shoulder. "Up." She stood. "Tablet down." She lowered it. "And don't." "I know. You absolutely do not know. I wasn't going to say anything. That sentence frightens me more." The royal party drew closer. Jonas moved his maintenance cart against the wall. Lena stepped beside him. Queen Marith was halfway across the hall when Lena turned toward the sound of her father, clipping the vacuum wand back into place. The queen stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. One of the ministers nearly walked into her. Jonas heard the faint click of guards shifting their boots. The queen stared directly at Lena. Jonas instinctively looked at his daughter, wondering what she had done. Lena was standing perfectly still. Her brown hair was tied messily behind her head. There was flour from the sweet roll on one sleeve. Her blue school jacket had a broken clasp Jonas had promised to fix. Nothing about her belonged in a royal hall. Yet the queen looked as if the walls around her had vanished. "Your Majesty," Valen asked quietly. Marith did not answer. She took one step toward Lena, then another. Jonas moved between them. The guards noticed immediately. 2 hands went toward ceremonial weapons. Jonas froze. He had no intention of challenging anyone. He was simply a father whose child had suddenly become the focus of the most powerful person on the planet. Queen Marith raised one hand. The guard stopped. Her gaze remained on Lena. When she spoke, her voice had changed. "She looks like my dead daughter." No one moved. Jonas felt Lena's fingers catch the back of his work jacket. Valen's expression tightened. "Your Majesty." "The eyes," Marith whispered. She came closer. Jonas stayed where he was. The queen seemed not to notice the defiance. "Not the color," she said, "the shape." Lena peeked around her father. Queen Marith inhaled sharply. And that expression, Lena immediately stopped making whatever expression she had been making. Jonas swallowed. "Your Majesty, this is my daughter, Lena." "I heard you. She's 8. The queen looked at him for the first time. Jonas realized too late that he sounded as though he were warning her. Perhaps he was. "My daughter died 11 years ago," Marith said. Jonas nodded carefully. "I'm sorry." The queen looked back toward Lena. "May I see her?" Jonas hesitated. No one in the hall breathed normally. "From there," he said. One minister stared at him, as though he had requested ownership of the palace. Queen Marith merely nodded. "From here." Lena stepped half a pace from behind Jonas. The Queen studied her, not like a scientist, not like a ruler, like someone staring through a window that had not existed a moment before. Lena shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, I'm here." Meredith's gaze dropped to Lena's left hand. The child was rubbing her thumb twice across the side of her index finger, a small nervous habit Jonas had seen thousands of times. The Queen's face lost its color. "Elira did that." Valen stepped forward. "Your Majesty, grief can produce associations where none exist." Meredith turned. The archivist stopped speaking. "I know my daughter's hands." "Of course. I only mean, I know what you mean." Jonas wished desperately to return to being invisible. He had built an entire career around invisibility. Invisible workers heard arguments without being invited into them. They cleaned conference rooms after historical decisions. They replaced filters in offices belonging to people whose names appeared on currency. Being unnoticed was safe. Lena had apparently destroyed that strategy by standing still. A palace physician was summoned. Dr. Severin arrived carrying a diagnostic pad and looking confused. The Queen explained almost nothing. She simply asked whether a human child could naturally resemble a Vayer adult. The physician glanced at Lena. "In superficial ways, perhaps." "This is not superficial. Your Majesty, with respect, I would need medical records." Jonas's shoulders tightened. "No examination." Everyone looked at him. He cleared his throat. "I mean, not without knowing why." The physician lowered the pad. Queen Meredith nodded. "Do you have her childhood medical records?" "Some." "May Dr. Severin review them?" Jonas looked at Lena. She shrugged. "They're boring. That is not informed consent." "I'm 8. "Exactly." The Queen's mouth twitched. For a fraction of a second, Jonas thought she might have almost smiled. He gave permission for the physician to access Lena's non-restricted pediatric files. Dr. Severin studied them for several minutes. Then several more. His expression changed. "What?" Meredith asked. "There are unusual markers." Jonas's stomach tightened. "What kind?" "Nothing harmful. Old tissue regeneration signatures." Jonas frowned. "She was injured as a baby." "How badly?" "I was told she nearly died." Dr. Severin looked up. "Where?" "Kalis 9. The Queen went absolutely still. Valen spoke first. "That station was destroyed." Jonas nodded. "I know, I was there." "When?" Meredith asked. He gave the date. The Queen stared at him. Jonas had the sudden sensation that some invisible machine had just engaged around them. "That was the day Princess Elira died," Dr. Severin said. Jonas glanced toward the Queen. "I didn't know." Meredith's attention shifted downward to his maintenance belt. Jonas followed her gaze. Several tools hung there. A universal access key, a light tester, a cracked personal tag, and an old metal transit token he had carried for nearly 11 years. Queen Meredith stepped forward. Her restraint vanished. "Where did you get that?" Jonas touched the token. "This." "Where?" "Kalis 9. Valen's head snapped toward him. Meredith's voice dropped. "Who gave it to you?" "I don't know." "You must remember." "I remember her. I don't know her name." The Queen stared at him. Jonas felt Lena's hand slide back into his. "Tell me," Meredith said. So he did. Kalis 9 had been dying for 43 minutes. By the time Jonas reached the inner transit ring, he remembered alarms. Smoke. Emergency shutters opening and closing without reason. People running toward evacuation docks already marked full. Lena had been 6 months old. Jonas's wife had died shortly after Lena's birth. It had been just the two of them from then on. He had been carrying Lena against his chest when a pressure rupture threw them into a wall. Jonas woke beneath a collapsed sign. Lena was not crying. That frightened him more than the alarms. He dug himself free and found blood on his sleeve, though he could not remember whether it was his. He carried Lena toward the medical level. The doors were sealed. The emergency lifts were dead. Somewhere above them, the station announced that the outer ring would be abandoned in 12 minutes. Then a woman appeared through the smoke. Alien. Vayer. Her ceremonial clothes were torn. One shoulder was burned. Jonas remembered thinking she had no reason to be there. She looked like someone who should have been surrounded by guards, not crawling beneath damaged support beams. She saw Lena, asked what had happened. Jonas told her he didn't know. The woman took the baby. Jonas tried to stop her. She looked him directly in the face. If you want her alive, let me help. Jonas did. He remembered the woman carrying Lena toward an emergency medical alcove. Remembered a pale blue light. Remembered her removing something from beneath the skin of her wrist. Remembered her staggering afterward. Then the evacuation corridor opened. A rescue team shouted that the lower ring was minutes from collapse. The woman shoved the metal transit token into Jonas's hand. Take her. What about you? Take your daughter. The rescuers pulled Jonas toward the shuttle. The last time he saw the woman, she was running the opposite direction. Back into the station. Jonas finished the story. No one in the reception hall spoke. Queen Marith looked at the token again. May I? Jonas removed it from his belt. He placed it in her open palm. The queen turned it over. There was nothing impressive about it. A scratched silver disc. A faded geometric pattern. A corner melted black. Marith touched one tiny symbol near the edge. This was issued to Elira's personal evacuation unit. Valen immediately shook his head. Thousands of royal supply tokens circulated through crown stations. Not these. Your Majesty. Not these. Jonas stared at the disc. For 11 years, he had believed it was ordinary. A keepsake. Proof that someone had helped his daughter. That woman was Princess Elira, he asked. Marith closed her fingers around the token. I don't know. It sounded like the most painful sentence she had spoken. But I intend to find out. By morning, Jonas had become a security problem. He discovered this when 2 palace guards arrived outside his apartment before breakfast. Lena opened the door first. Jonas nearly dropped the coffee pot. Lena. What? Never open the door without asking. They knocked. That is exactly when people open doors. The guards remained impressively expressionless. Jonas pointed at them. See, they understand what I mean. One guard almost smiled. They escorted Jonas and Lena back to the palace. Not through the grand halls. Through the archive level. Queen Marith was already waiting. She looked as if she had not slept. Lord Archivist Valen stood beside a sealed data console. Dr. Severin occupied another station. On the table between them lay the old evacuation token. Jonas noticed it had been placed on soft cloth. He found that strange. For 11 years it had shared space with screwdrivers. Mr. Rel, Marith said. Your Majesty. Lena. Hi. Jonas closed his eyes briefly. The Queen said hello. Lena appeared relieved. Valen cleared his throat. We have examined the token. And Jonas asked. It is authentic. Marith looked at him. It belonged to Elira. Jonas felt something shift inside his chest. He glanced at Lena. She was studying the token through the transparent shield around it. So the lady who saved me was a princess? She asked. We don't know yet, Jonas said. Marith's eyes stayed on Lena. No, not yet. Valen opened an archive display. The difficulty is that the official record is clear. Princess Elira boarded Royal Evacuation Shuttle 1 at 19:06. The shuttle suffered catastrophic damage 2 minutes later. Jonas looked at the Queen. That doesn't match what I saw. No, Marith said. It also does not explain the token, Dr. Severin added. Valen folded his hands. Which is why I recommend caution. Memories formed during disasters are notoriously unreliable. Jonas looked at him. My daughter nearly died. I remember the person who carried her. You said yourself the station was full of smoke. I remember her. Perhaps you remember a Vair woman. Jonas's voice cooled. I remember the woman. The Queen raised one hand. Enough. Valen bowed his head. Marith turned toward the archivist. Show me the shuttle manifest. Your Majesty. The original manifest. That material is sealed. By whose authority? Valen hesitated. Crown Emergency Statute. I am the Crown. Silence. Valen entered a code. The display changed. 32 names appeared. Queen Marith read them. Once. Twice. Her eyes narrowed. Elira is not listed. Valen said nothing. The Queen enlarged the record. There was a space between 2 passenger entries. A missing line. Not corrupted. Removed. Marith looked toward Valen. You told me she was aboard. That was the official finding. You told me you saw her boarding record. I saw a summarized report. You stood beside me at her memorial and said the shuttle record was conclusive. Valen's expression remained controlled. At the time, all evidence available to my office supported that conclusion. Jonas glanced toward Lena. She looked uneasy. He touched her shoulder. The Queen noticed. Her anger compressed into stillness. What do the station records show? She asked. Valen exhaled. Most were destroyed. Most. Maintenance logs survived in fragments. Jonas looked up. What kind? Valen almost ignored him. Jonas stepped closer. What kind of maintenance logs? Environmental routing, access junctions, power cycling, which architecture revision? Valen blinked. What? Kalis 9 had 3 service architectures. If the logs came from the lower ring, revision matters. The archivist stared at him. Jonas pointed at the display. I work maintenance. Stations don't delete everything the same way. Emergency systems keep ugly copies in ugly places because engineers don't trust central archives. Dr. Severin looked interested. Queen Marith said, "Can you find them?" Jonas hesitated. "If you have the raw backups." Valen said, "Those files have resisted reconstruction for a decade." Jonas shrugged. Were the people trying to reconstruct them archivists? The room went silent. Lena whispered, "Dad." "What?" That sounded rude. It was a technical question. It sounded rude technically. Queen Marith looked away. This time Jonas was certain she smiled. The palace archive staff had spent years searching for royal data. Jonas searched for plumbing. Not literal plumbing. Almost. He ignored passenger lists, command logs, security files, and ceremonial network channels. He searched for environmental doors, pressure relays, access panel diagnostics, ventilation alarms, and service corridor power usage. At first Valen watched with visible impatience. Then Jonas found a door cycle. Lower medical corridor. 1911. 3 emergency openings after central evacuation had already been ordered. He found another. Service hatch 7C. Opened manually. Then a damaged ventilation sensor. Reported 11 bodies passing through a shaft designed for technicians. Queen Marith leaned closer. Someone was moving civilians. Jonas nodded. Looks like it. They followed the maintenance trail. Door by door. Relay by relay. Someone had moved trapped civilians around blocked royal corridors. The route continued for nearly 20 minutes. Finally, it reached the auxiliary shuttle bay. A surviving departure sensor recorded 187 passengers. The official evacuation count for that bay was 82. More than 100 people were missing from the report, Dr. Severin said. Marith looked toward Valen. His face had gone pale. Why? I don't know. You know something. I know there was confusion. The Queen stood. Valen looked at the floor. Then Lena pointed at the display. What's that? A tiny line pulsed near the final maintenance entry. Jonas enlarged it. Emergency Medical Alcove 12. Manual activation. 1923. He felt cold. That's where she took Lena. Dr. Severin opened the associated subsystem. The medical record was almost entirely corrupted. Almost. One line survived. Regenerative lattice transfer initiated. The Queen stopped breathing. Dr. Severin looked at her. Your Majesty. Marith slowly raised one hand toward her wrist. There was a device. Jonas remembered. Under her skin. Marith nodded. Royal emergency lattice. Dr. Severin's face changed. Valen whispered, impossible. Jonas turned. What is it? The physician spoke carefully. Their royal family members traditionally carried an emergency regenerative system. It was designed for catastrophic injury. Like medical nanotech. Similar, more adaptive. It used a biological template from its host. Jonas looked at Lena. Dr. Severin continued. It could theoretically stabilize another person. Theoretically. Transfer was never recommended. Why? Because once removed, the original host lost the protection. The words settled across the room. Jonas stared at the old record. Lena's voice was small. She gave hers to me. No one answered immediately. Then Queen Marith did. Yes. Jonas looked at her. The queen's eyes were wet but steady. That is what Elira would have done. Valen stepped forward. We still cannot prove Princess Elira initiated the transfer. Marith turned. The token could have changed hands. The maintenance route could have been another rescuer. The lattice. There were multiple royal systems on station. Marith stared at him. How many? Valen did not answer. How many archivists? One. The queen's voice hardened. Elira S. Valen closed his eyes. Jonas suddenly understood. You knew. The archivist looked at him. You knew something about this. I knew the official account was incomplete. That is not the same sentence. Marith moved toward Valen. What did you know? For the first time, the archivist looked old. The royal evacuation team received orders to abandon the lower ring. Marith said nothing. Structural failure was accelerating. Command believed continued rescue operations would risk the crown convoy. And Elira. She refused to leave. The queen's jaw tightened. Valen continued. She ordered her guards to assist civilians. Then why was I told she boarded? Because the guards left. Jonas frowned. Without her, they believed they could force her onto the shuttle. They failed. When the outer ring began collapsing, they withdrew. The queen stared at him. You buried that. The council believed the monarchy could not survive the scandal. What scandal? That royal security abandoned a princess. That a royal command abandoned civilians, Valen said, and that the princess openly disobeyed it. Marith's voice became dangerously quiet. You turned her courage into obedience. Valen bowed his head. We preserved stability. You rewrote my daughter. No one spoke. Lena reached for Jonas's hand. He held it. The queen looked toward the child. All the anger in her face changed. What happened after the lattice transfer? She asked. Dr. Severin searched the damaged record. There should be telemetry inside the token. Jonas looked at the disk. Inside that, not storage in the conventional sense. Royal evacuation tokens carried checksum fragments, enough to authenticate emergency events. Valen shook his head. The token is damaged. Jonas stepped closer. The edge is damaged. Everyone looked at him. What? Marith asked. Jonas pointed. The outer contact is burned, but the inner service notch is intact. Valen said, there is no service notch. Jonas looked at him. Yes, there is. This is a royal token. It is also a machine. Jonas reached toward the shield, then stopped. May I? The queen nodded. He removed the token, turned it sideways, pressed his thumbnail into what looked like part of the decorative rim. A tiny segment shifted. Valen stared. Jonas shrugged. Engineers hide manual access under decorative covers because rich people complain about visible screws. Lena grinned. The queen actually laughed. It lasted less than a second, but it changed the room. Dr. Severin connected the newly exposed contact. The archive console flashed. A damaged data block appeared. Authentication confirmed. ELYRA MARITHSRN. The queen sat down. Jonas had never seen a ruler become simply a mother so quickly. Dr. Severin recovered the medical telemetry first. A human infant. Critical trauma. Respiratory collapse. Regenerative support initiated. Foreign template adaptation unstable. Then stabilizing. Then successful. Lena. Jonas stared at the survival reading. 11 years ago, he had been dragged onto an evacuation shuttle, believing his daughter might still die. Now he was looking at the exact moment she had lived. Dr. Severin opened another diagnostic layer. This explains the resemblance. Jonas looked up. How? The lattice did not alter her species. It repaired damaged tissue using temporary reference patterns derived from Elira's biology. So Lena has her DNA. No, not in the way you mean. Jonas relaxed slightly. The system used Elira's biological structure as a repair guide. Most of those effects vanished as Lena grew, but a few developmental traits remained. The eyes, Marith said. Dr. Severin nodded. Perhaps. The hand movement. Possibly neurological pattern reinforcement during regeneration. We cannot know precisely. Lena looked horrified. Did a machine make me rub my finger? Jonas looked down. That is your concern. It's annoying. The queen covered her mouth. For one heartbeat, grief and amusement existed together. Jonas realized that might be the first time she had allowed them to. Then another file appeared. Audio. Short. Damaged. Valen stepped forward. Your Majesty. Marith did not look at him. Play it. The archivist hesitated. Play it. Static filled the room. A woman's voice emerged. Weak. Breathing hard. Jonas recognized it instantly. 11 years disappeared. He was back inside the smoke, back beneath failing lights, back watching an injured stranger hold his daughter. The recording crackled. Medical alcove 12, civilian infant stabilized. Static swallowed several words. Then the voice returned. Transfer successful. More distortion. A distant alarm. Another voice shouted something unintelligible. Princess Elira spoke again. Evacuation group is moving toward Auxiliary Bay. A crash. Heavy breathing. Then, confirmed the human baby reached the shuttle. Static. The recording ended. No farewell. No speech about duty. No message for history. No final declaration. Only a question. Did the baby survive? Queen Marith sat motionless. Jonas looked at Lena. Lena looked at the queen. For 11 years, the queen had apparently believed her daughter died inside a royal shuttle. For 11 years, Jonas had believed an unknown stranger had saved his child. Both stories had been wrong, and somehow the truth joined them in a quiet archive beneath the palace. Marith looked at Jonas. Did she? Jonas's throat tightened. He understood the question. Not as queen, as mother. He nodded. Yes. Marith closed her eyes. Jonas squeezed Lena's hand. Yes, he said again, she made it. The queen lowered her head. No one approached her. No one offered comfort. Perhaps everyone understood that some griefs were too old to be interrupted. Lena released Jonas's hand. He almost stopped her. She walked toward the queen. Slowly, she stopped several feet away. Your daughter saved me. Marith opened her eyes. Yes. Did she know my name? Jonas shook his head. I don't think I told her. Lena considered that. Then she looked at the queen. She was brave. Marith's face tightened. Yes. The word almost broke. Yes, she was. The official correction was released 3 days later. Valen opposed it. The Crown Council resisted it. Several ministers warned that admitting falsified historical records would damage confidence in the monarchy. Queen Marith released everything anyway. Not the private medical details. Not Lena's identity. Only the truth that mattered. Princess Elira had refused evacuation. She had remained behind to move civilians through blocked service corridors. She had surrendered her own emergency protection to save an injured child. She had continued rescue efforts afterward. The exact circumstances of her final moments were still unknown, but she had not died obediently beside royal guards. She had died because she went back. Jonas watched the announcement from a service break room. 4 maintenance technicians stood around the screen. No one knew the unnamed child in the report was Lena. Jonas preferred it that way. One technician wiped his eyes and pretended to have dust in them. Another said, "You think the queen knew?" Jonas looked at the screen. No. Imagine finding out after 11 years. Jonas did not have to imagine. When he returned home, Lena was sitting at the kitchen table. Her homework was untouched. That's suspicious, Jonas said. What? You're not complaining about school. I'm thinking. More suspicious. She looked at him. Am I supposed to be important now? Jonas stopped. No, because the palace people keep looking at me. He sat across from her. You are important. She groaned. Dad, not because of the queen. Oh, you're important because you leave sweet roll crumbs on floors I just cleaned. That doesn't sound important. It has shaped my life. She smiled, then grew serious. Am I like the princess? Jonas thought carefully. You have some things that remind the queen of her. But I'm not her. No. And I'm not royal. No. And I don't have to live in the palace. Absolutely not. Good, their chairs are uncomfortable. Jonas laughed. Then Lena looked at the old transit token sitting on the table. The queen had returned it that morning. Jonas had not yet put it back on his key ring. Lena touched the blackened edge. Why did the princess give you this? I think she needed me to get through the evacuation gate. Then it was mine. No, she gave it to me. For me. Jonas considered correcting her. He didn't. Yes. Lena nodded, then went back to her homework. For the first time in 11 years, the token seemed heavier than metal. A month later, the memorial to Princess Elira reopened. The old inscription had been removed. Jonas knew, because he had helped clean the dust after the stoneworkers finished. There was no dramatic statue added. Queen Marith refused one. The new memorial contained a simple record of the Kalis 9 evacuation. Names, routes, civilian counts, the service corridors Elira had opened, the auxiliary bay where survivors escaped. In one final line, she returned when she had already been given permission to leave. Jonas liked that better than the old words about royal duty. The ceremony itself lasted hours. Jonas avoided it. He was working. By evening, the palace had emptied. Diplomats left. News crews packed equipment. Guards returned to normal rotations. Jonas moved through the memorial hall with his cart. Lena sat on the wide steps nearby, doing mathematics on her tablet. Or pretending to. You've been on the same problem for 15 minutes, Jonas called. I'm thinking. You told me thinking was suspicious. That was you. Still applies. Footsteps approached. Jonas looked up. Queen Marith entered alone. No guards. No ministers. No archivist. She wore simple dark clothing. Lena stood. Jonas started to straighten. Marith waved him off. Please. He nodded. The queen looked at Lena. May I sit? Lena looked at the enormous memorial hall. There's lots of room. Marith smiled. She sat on the step beside her. For a while neither spoke. Jonas returned to cleaning a display rail 10 meters away. He gave them privacy without pretending he wasn't watching. Eventually, Lena reached into her jacket pocket. She removed the old transit token. Jonas had wondered where it went. She held it toward the queen. I think this belongs to you. Marith stared at it. No, it was your daughter's. She gave it to your father. Lena looked toward Jonas. He pretended to be extremely interested in a smudge. She gave it to him because of me, Lena said. Yes, so maybe it belongs to both families. The queen's expression softened. Perhaps. Lena held it out again. Marith gently closed the child's fingers around the disc. Keep it. Lena looked down at her hand. For once she had no quick answer. Then she walked toward Jonas. He turned. She opened the clip on his maintenance belt and attached the token beside his access keys. There. Jonas looked down. The old silver disc hung between a service key and a cheap flashlight, exactly where it had been for years. You sure? He asked. Lena nodded. Queen Marith rose from the memorial step. She looked at the token, then at Lena, then at Jonas. No proclamation followed, no royal title, no promise to change their lives. Jonas was grateful. He pushed the maintenance cart toward the next corridor. Lena fell into step beside him, still carrying her unfinished homework. Behind them, Queen Marith remained beside the memorial to the daughter she had finally been allowed to know. Jonas's cart rolled across the polished floor. At his hip, among scratched tools and ordinary maintenance keys, Princess Elira's old evacuation token swung softly with every step.